So today we're going to continue our Advent series, and thank you for Randy for bringing in the Christ light there, remembering. So I'm going to go ahead and light the candles that we started with here first. First was hope and faith. And then last week was peace. And this week we get to be and feel and know love. So today we're talking about love. But first I just want to remind folks that in Unity, when we do the Advent kind of process and series, it's a bit different than tradition. And so when we're going through an Advent season and process, it's really about how do we embody the Christ within? How do we become that living, breathing presence of the Christ Spirit? And so we go through this time of Advent with, the traditional sort of awe and wonder and expectation, but we also take that within to be able to be introspective about how in our own lives we can bring forth that newness and that new birth. And so all of these themes are part of creating that awareness so that we can also create the expression. And so regardless of where you're at on the Jesus birth, come on, y'all, that's just a weirdo story. Some of us believe that, like it's a silly story, or that didn't really happen. And we all have so many ways that we come to this story, the Christmas story. But the most important thing to think about is that it's not really about, is it true? But it is real. And here's what I mean. The realness of it comes in what it evokes within us. When you see things that remind you of Christmas time, or when it reminds you of what the experience of thinking about this idea of the journey to Bethlehem. So that is really what is real, is what it invokes in us and evokes in us to be able to feel those sentiments. And when we feel those sentiments, it's like that rustling of the Spirit that allows for these faculties to grow. So we're focusing on the Christ consciousness. We're focusing on that when we think about this. And then the blessings of the story for you as an individual come through when we're open to a different way of looking at this story. So the last couple of weeks, as I mentioned, we talked about hope and faith. Both of those, as I mentioned, we tend to want as human beings and as folks from Americans and Westerners to, I want to get these themes right. I want to possess them. I want to have them materialize in my life. I want to perfect them. Don't we do that? Like we're taught, like there's a spirit of perfection. I've got to get these things right. I've got to really practice them. But the thing that I remind everyone about these faculties is it's a process. They are powers in many respects, but it's also a process that we're allowing them to unfold in our lives and that we are practicing them. That's the beauty of Unity, and what Unity offers to the world is that we are a practical Christianity that offers us the ability to practice the presence and to be kind and generous with each other when we are practicing how to inhabit that Christness. Peace as a process as well, about being able to hold the tension between chaos and peace. Because oftentimes the biggest blessings come with chaos and the aftermath as that dust settles. I'm sure you can think about your own life when that has happened. All those are online if you want to check them out on YouTube or Facebook so that you can catch up. But today we're on love. And I want us to kind of really think about and almost unthink what we know about love. Most of the time when we talk about love, we're talking about love as an emotion. How do I feel when I am with my significant other? How do I feel when I see my child, or look in the eyes of my child? It's that emotion that we feel, that we come to, that makes us feel warm and fuzzy, right? But there's another kind of love that we're talking about here from an energetic perspective, from a faculty, a power perspective, and that is that love is a power. It's a power in that it can be a transformative energy, it can be an uplifting energy, and that power of love ultimately becomes something that attracts and harmonizes. When you're in that space of love as a power, you're attracting to yourself, you're creating the sacred container for all these other things to unfold. And so we're going to play today with this idea. Charles Fillmore, in his book, The 12 Powers, says this about love. Love holds soul and body together. Love is the attractive force that draws our good to us according to the depth and strength of our realization of love. So hence, how we understand and feel into love is really the way that we then see the demonstration, that attractive force that draws the good. As I said, love is a great harmonizer as a principle that brings two or more things together into harmony. So how do we choose to do that? I always love how all of this sounds fun, right? When you're reading it, ooh, that sounds good, I want that. That sounds good, sounds easy, doesn't it? But then when we try to apply it in our lives, not so easy. So how do we choose to enact and be love? And as I started this out by saying, a lot of that is letting go of what we know about love, letting go what we think we know about love, and really remembering the essence of love that we came into this iteration of life with, that was sometimes taken from us, ridiculed to us, beat out of us. So it's really that remembrance process and that letting go that we're coming to. Because the reality is this, we have a really warped sense of love. Now, I'm going to come out of the closet as saying I'm a Hallmark Channel junkie during this time. Are there any folks that are like Hallmark Channel junkies? Oh my gosh, and they even came out with an app, and so you can check off the movies that you oh my God, it's okay. Anyway, luckily this year I'm too busy to do that. But every year I was like, okay, these Hallmark channels, and I know, right, intellectually as well as spiritually, like, what is this doing for me? Why am I watching this? But part of it is it's enacting kind of that warped love that we sort of live with and in, that almost is kind of funny now, that I find it a joke. Because all of the stories are the same, are they not? It's like, you know, girl meets boy, and then they decide to be in this fake relationship because a girl's got to go home to mom and dad and doesn't have a husband or a boyfriend, and then they fall in love after. It's not a farce, you know? Or, you know, whatever. You know, somebody's a workaholic, and then they decide to meet somebody, and then they give up the workaholism, and they're in love. And then now, since Hallmark is more progressive, they're either the same story, but people of color, or two men or two women, right? But they're the same story. But it's the idea of this love that we're accustomed to that is outside of ourselves. It's this love that we're waiting on for somebody to give us. It's this love that we're waiting to feel complete by. And it's okay, and I've reconciled being a junkie, but it's recognizing that that's kind of the story in our mind that we're reinforcing with all of these narratives, is that it's something out there, it's something that we need to complete us, it's something that is telling us we're not enough. You know, there's a little book that's an oldie but a goodie called a 12-power meditation exercise by Charles Roth. And I love in that book, he talks about love as one of the powers, of course, because it's on the 12 powers. And he says that, we, again, with this warped sense of love, that many of us have experienced love that we've learned from our families or we've learned from our cultures that we have to let go of. And he talks really funny about the fact that most of the time we've experienced vampire love or dictator love. That sounds funny, right? But when you think of vampire love, who's experienced that where somebody is sucking the life out of you, where there's a dazzle and a glow to them when you meet them and you're like, oh my gosh, that person's the one. And then all of a sudden it's like, uh-oh, Satan incarnate. Not that we believe in Satan and unity, but you all know what I mean. It happens, where somebody then is literally taking your power, your life force, your light, or maybe we've been those people at times. Or the dictator where I'm going to give you love, but it has to be the way I say. I'm going to give you love, but it's going to be on my terms. I'm going to give you love, but you need to think, act, and be and react the way I want you to. And so he says with all of this that this is not love. This is ego love. And so part of this holiday season, and part of also even our power this month of life is to letting go that ego love and allowing Spirit to move and live and breathe in you and show you what that might look like in your life, how that is coming across in your life, how you think you're loving, but really it's a selfish love that you need to heal. So we don't know. All of us are coming to this from a different place. But what we do know is that we need to repair that wound. We need to repair the wound that we have of love, that warped love. And I want to share with you all a quote from an author called Bell Hooks. Does anybody know who Bell Hooks is? All right, you all get some serious brownie points up in this joint. Nice. Bell Hooks just passed away this past week. And she was an academic. She was a professor. She wrote over 30 books, prolific writer. She was a feminist theorist. I could go on and on about who she was. And by the way, she was also a Tennessean. So it came to me that when I heard that she passed, one of my favorite books of hers that was written in the 80s, that at the time was really not given that many accolades at the beginning, because it was really out of alignment with so many other of her works, as well as what was celebrated at that time in sort of like cultural history or academic circles. And the book that she wrote was called All About Love, New Visions. And in that book, she started to say that what we as people who were in wanting different things to happen in the world, that we needed to have an ethic of love. And for her, that meant that so long she talked about that there was in the movement of Black Power movement, she said there was then a focus on the struggle for power. And she said, whereas that did wonderful things, that for her, part of the important transformation was really looking at love. And so here's one of the quotes that she talks about that I want to share with you, because it really relates to all that we're kind of wanting to unpack here about warped love. She says, the wounded child inside many males is a boy who, when he first spoke his truths, was silenced by paternal sadism, by a patriarchal world that did not want him to claim his true feelings. The wounded child inside many females is a girl who was taught from early childhood that she must become something other than herself, deny her true feelings in order to attract and please others. When men and women punish each other for truth-telling, we reinforce the notion that lies are better. To be loving, we willingly hear the other's truth. And most important, we affirm the value of truth-telling. Lies may make people feel better, but they do not help to know love. Bell hooks. I think the Christmas time and the Christmas story is a great way for us to go into this. And it might seem a little odd, but let's take the Christmas story as a metaphysical model of healing, particularly around this idea of love and woundedness between males and females even. You know, in the traditional version is we can kind of tweak it a little bit to kind of have this metaphysical idea of what we were saying. So Joseph's love for Mary, for example, even though he knew that the child that she was with was not his, in that time, you know, in ancient times, she could have been stoned to death, right? These are the realities. Even today, these are some of the realities of what women face. But what he did was, instead, he accepted that. He accepted that whatever his journey was, he was going to allow that to be. And he used his wisdom to be able to, and the guidance that he got from his intuition, his angels in the story, right? Which is really just our intuition, our wisdom, our inner wisdom, as the angels represent, to then move forward in this story, to be able to stand with Mary and to be able to have this newness, this new birth of Jesus. And similarly, Mary allowed herself, again, with the angels and the intuition, but also with the idea of just being the expression of love. And she represents, as do mother figures, right, this undenying love, this life force that is above anything, that will do anything, that is protective and guiding, nurturing, comforting. So in the story, she is that. And one of the beautiful parts that I love in the story is that she, when the shepherds come to see her and talk to her about what they've seen and how they're coming to witness this birth, you know, Mary has this natural motherly love, not just for Jesus, but ultimately for them. When you see her response, that she's saying that God's love is here for everyone. God's love is here for her son, but she sends that out to them. Like, she's so overwhelmed when she hears their story that they've come. It's this energy, right, of love, but it's a love that is very, in this metaphysical, energetic situation, very specific. Charles Fillmore writes about this. Can you imagine? He was writing in the early 1900s about things about the divine feminine, the divine masculine, that we don't even think we're having part of this spiritual conversation. And he writes that ideas also have a gendered essence. The evidence, he says, the evidence that sex exists in the vegetable world is clear, but it's never questioned. But we have to, animal and vegetable world is clear and it's never questioned. But we have not so clearly discerned that ideas are also masculine and feminine. And he says in one of his books that love is gendered feminine and wisdom is gendered masculine. And what does that mean? And we talk about in Unity thinking natures, the mind. And so for Fillmore and for what I'm suggesting here today is that that's part of what is coming forward here in this story. You know, Joseph, and for us as Joseph, to think about that masculine wisdom that's coming into the story. And for Mary and us as Mary to come into this as love as the feeling nature. But together, they give balance that is necessary for harmonious and wholesome expression. So we're combining the two to create new life. So what does that mean for us? That means that there are those pieces of us that need to be resurrected, that need to be reborn, that we need to get in touch with those parts of ourselves that we've lost. And some of us, it's not about anatomical parts, because some of us are female and our essence is masculine and vice versa. So part of our work to heal and to embody the Christ consciousness is also to heal those parts of ourselves as we move forward in life. And it's not always easy, but doing this comes through difficult conversations and differing opinions and loving beyond judgment. I want to share with you quickly kind of a follow-up to a story that I shared a few weeks ago. So I was saying how we did our survey, right? And that all this fun stuff came inside the survey results and comments that were not about the mask. And I talked about that and what that did and how I kind of came at that. I left the service, and right after I left, I had a text message from one of the people that had made a comment and basically said, "That was me, and I'm sorry. I stand by what I said, but I would love to have a conversation with you." That to me was amazing, because that doesn't always happen in life. These surveys were anonymous. So immediately I was like, wow, that person has big consciousness. What did y'all think I was going to say? Come on now, y'all, I'm in church. But I thought, wow, it takes a person with an elevated consciousness to grasp what just happened here and what needs to happen moving forward. And so we met and we had a conversation. And it was one of those moments that was so beautiful, because what was said to me, and it was a man. And I thought to myself, oftentimes men don't do that. I'm sorry, they really don't. And part of it is the conditioning. Again, this toxic stuff that happens. Men are told you have to be right, you have to know, you have to be the protector, you have to always be in that kind of role, in that script. And so it's not always easy sometimes for folks, for gentlemen. So I was really in awe about that. And we had a conversation that to me was so important, that was one of these other things, like confirmations about what we're doing here in this community, is together we're modeling what we need to do and how we need to be. And he said to me, "I support women. I'm really ashamed that I did this." And so I said, we don't have to, we're not going to live there. Thank you, I appreciate all of this. And I obviously took accountability for some things that I did as well, because it's a two-way street. We like to always be the victim, don't we? I mean, not as women, I'm saying, but just generally, we like as human beings to be the victim, but we also have to give to part of the story, you know, and how we also to create situations, whether it was not thinking things throughly, or maybe making a comment that was too fast, or maybe making a move that really ruffled some feathers, whatever the case may be. And maybe just even not speaking. What we found out was that we just hadn't communicated to each other what I was doing and what he thought I should be doing, and how we could meet in the middle and understand each other. And so it's a powerful moment when we can have those kind of conversations where, what are we doing? We're combining the wisdom, the logic, the intellect, the knowing with the feeling. We're connecting that with, how do I come to this situation? How am I feeling? How am I hurt about this? How am I sad about this? How am I feeling about this situation as I'm moving forward? So I offered that to you all only as a way to think about sometimes that it's not always easy, but we're choosing to love. That's what we're doing every day, and we have to challenge ourselves to choose to love, because it's so much easier to just walk away. It's so much easier for us to sort of stay in someone's presence and midst and pretend that that didn't happen. Have you been there before? or you've just pretended that that didn't happen, but you're carrying that with you. And let me tell you what that is. That is a virus that is stronger than COVID. It is, because it creates something that grows in a community, and not just in a community. It's a virus that grows in you that creates health challenges. It's a toxicity that you're triggered within you that then grows and creates havoc in your life. These are the times where we get to choose. We get to choose love, and we get to choose the moments where we know we can enact love. So we're going to practice today. So I'm going to call up our musicians back so we can learn here, we can grow here, we can be here, we can commune here together in these faculties, in these powers. So I'm going to invite everyone just to take a few deep cleansing breaths. Breathing in and breathing out, allowing yourself to relax in this place and in this space. I am safe here. I am safe to be here. I am safe to claim healing here. I am safe to claim healing that sometimes is not logical and is not pretty. Maybe you have left a service before. There were folks that, if you stayed behind, were having feelings. There were tears here. There were prayers, that groups of people that were praying here for folks. I was praying with folks. When we are birthing this consciousness, when we are consciously, collectively healing, things will come through that are unexpected, and we just have to ride that wave. We have to be okay with those tears, with that confusion, with that anger, with that loneliness, whatever that is. Charles Fillmore called that chemicalization, that as your old ideas are meeting your new ideas, there's a little bit of a moment that all this dust is kicked up energetically, emotionally. So know that that may happen, but know that you are safe. We allow and we give ourselves over to Spirit. We give ourselves over to that inner energy as we take this trip together to Bethlehem. And we open up to that divine wisdom and that divine love. And we open to that union of the two. That beautiful essence where we can think and feel. Where we can think and feel and heal. What is your spirit calling forth in you? Where are the spaces and places in your mind and body that need healing from this warped love? Where are the spaces and places in your mind and body that are ready to gloriously embrace this power of love? This attracting, harmonizing force that can pour over your life blessings so greatly that you can't even process them. You can't even catch up with them. There's so many flying. Are you ready? Allow yourself to be ready, and allow yourself the space, the sacred, safe space to do and be love. Let's take a moment in the silence as we just allow for love.